Hey, this is Glendon with Making Money with Storage Unit Auctions. The title of this video, Boxes, Storage Wars, Auction Hunters, and Other TV Shows. I'm going to put a link to the video. Robert put up a great video about how you can see boxes and they can be stacked nice and you can still get burned. But this is something I've talked about since 2009. Just going on the presumption that if there are nice boxes in a nice unit, you're going to make money. No, you're not. Not always. There are so many clues that will tip you to whether those boxes actually have anything is unreal. I talked about this in my book, and there's a passage, because people are like, nice boxes from moving companies mean that they spent some money, and if they spent some money on some nice boxes, it's gotta be some good stuff in there, right? Wrong. Let me give you some of my experiences. A lot of people are moved by their companies. That's a corporate relocation with one of the major van lines. And often you may have someone who was a peon now becomes a member of the executive ranks. And during their transition in that corporate relocation, their peon shit gets moved. Frequently, and I don't know if you were in the military, but if you ever been moved by military housing, they will wrap your trash. Because these movers, they're on the clock. They gotta get that stuff, and they're going in there and they're wrapping. I even put in the book that how a lot of times corporate relocation units are some of the worst units to get because movers use a lot of paper. Here's a little tip. Movers get paid on two ways: time and materials. The more time they take, the more money they make. The more materials they use, the more money they make. So you can have, and this has happened to me so many times, you can have something about the size of a fire extinguisher, which is about this big and about that high. That'll be in a box this big. And you pick up the box, it's kind of light, but you feel something in the center. I don't know how many times that's happened. So if you are watching Storage Wars, Auction Hunters, or any other television show, and you using that as your guide to get in the business, I feel for you. I feel for you. Because these are some of the things that are not going to happen. Typically, when you buy a unit, the chances of you finding a high item, pulling that one item out of the unit, getting, shutting the door down, getting in your vehicle, and going to find a expert who will not only tell you what it's worth, but also give you close to maximum value after telling your ignorant ass what it was worth, you are boo-boo the fool. Let that shit go. It's not going to happen. Typically, when you buy a storage unit, the chances of you hanging on to those items for a week up to several months are very likely. That's the truth of the matter. Unless you have established sales channels that you can pull the stuff out the unit and start plugging that stuff in those channels, it moves fast. And it's not to say that you can't buy a unit Monday morning and say by Monday afternoon that you've made some money off some items. That's possible. It just depends on the item. But one of the things that these shows lead people to believe is an American fixation. It's just part of American culture. It's called immediate gratification. I just spent $1,500 on this unit. I gotta get my $1,500 back in 2 hours. 2 hours passed. This is some bullshit. I've been robbed. No. Understand, the way that things are the way that they're supposed to be. If it takes you a while to sell a few items, that's not atypical. What's atypical is burning and churning, getting something and selling it. Another thing that I see with the shows that no real storage person who's been in the game, and if you are a newbie and you do this, you have a very good chance of breaking something that can make you money. This business about going in the unit and just throwing stuff out in the hall, that's for TV. Another thing that drives me crazy with these TV shows is everybody is far too clean. I'm serious. If you've ever cleaned out a unit that has seen 2 or 3 seasons of pollen, or the stuff's been in there for a few years, I don't care what you're wearing. You come out, you're covered in dust, you're itching, you're scratching, you're dirty. Even if it's a clean unit, you're going to get dust and stuff on you. There's very few units that I was able to load and not show the signs of loading. Because you go to an auction, you could tell the guys that had loaded the unit before they came to the auction. They're all dirty and everything, sweaty, humming a little right. I see people go in units and come out clean, no sweat, no dust. That's not reality. Just letting you know, if you think you can be able to go out like some of these units, and one of the best units I ever bought was a hellhole. There were spiders. That's something else you don't see. A lot of times in these units, you have spiders, roaches, rats, and occasionally Sammy the snake. I've only seen one live snake in a unit, and I didn't buy that unit. I know someone that did, and it just weirded them out. But I have bought units, and I've seen the snake skin on top of stuff, which means Sammy was up in there. And at that point, I'm like this. Whoa, 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 whoa. Where is Sammy? Because you start looking up there, you're like, because you don't know. Snakes can do some weird stuff. Like, I don't mess with snakes. Call me a punk if you want to. I don't mess with snakes. So you have that type of stuff. Another thing that gets my boxers all up in the wads is the lack of dump shots. You know, I'm the only guy on YouTube that has a video titled "The Worst Unit I Ever Bought." It was one of my first videos. And I told you, I lost a G. Took the damn thing to the dump. And there's little people putting up comments. You're going to sell the scrapbook and stuff. You're going to sell the scrapbook and stuff. You could have made some money. Duh. Okay. If I could have sold that shit, don't you think I would have sold that shit? You don't understand. It's very hard to sell used cardboard. It's very hard to sell freaking crystal cups. It's very hard to sell used straws. And it's very hard to sell a big freaking hunkin' ball of yarn like this. Who's gonna buy? You gonna buy that? Hey, everybody that buys this shit, send me an email, because I know where there's plenty of it. Nobody's gonna buy that stuff, you test tube baby. Duh. Anyway, that's another thing. You're gonna go to the dump quite a bit. Here's a tip for you. If you're in the business, you need to source your dump, what they will and what they will not accept, because you're going to become very familiar with that location. You're going to get a great unit, and it's going to have a mattress with a big period stain on it. Or you're going to get a great unit that's going to have a mattress that the piss is knocking you out because they let their little brats pee all up on that very nice double pillow top mattress, and you're going like, why? It's got to go to the dump. You're going to get a refrigerator that looks good, and you open it up and the sucker's falling apart. You're going to buy a washer and a dryer, and you're going to move that sucker, and you put your hand on it and lift it, and the top's going to come off. It's funny now, but that shit happened. I was pissed. It's like, what? So you understand, you're going to the dump. I remember one time one of the brothers showed up, and Paul Clampett was like, hey, so what's been going on? What have you been doing? He said, to the dump, to the dump, to the dump, dump, dump. That was really good. And that's the reality. You're going to go to the dump. There's very few units that you're going to buy that is not going to have trash in it. There's very few. The lion's share are going to have trash. Trash being things you cannot sell. Trash is not necessarily, the bag of garbage from the kitchen. But if you can't sell it, it's trash to you. And that's the deal. So understand that. Those are some of the things that just really drive me crazy, because I'm getting people coming to me, talking to me, saying, well, the show said, well, if you saw the original credits, and for all you auction hunter folks out there that love the show, fine. You know, it's entertaining. Alan and Ton, they do their stuff, and they've kind of worked out some issue, and they got this chemistry, and they're funny, and it's very entertaining. I'm not going to lie and say, oh, no, it's not. It is very entertaining. But if you're going to watch that show, then come to me talking about, well, you know, that's the way they do it, and maybe you weren't as successful as they are. You know, maybe, if you were as successful as they are, you would have your own show. Because, see, they got a show. Bitch, that shit ain't real. Another fine product of our educational system. That shit ain't real. Oh, which leads me to another thing. Travel. The logistics of going from one state to another and buying one unit can be very interesting. I'm going to tell you how hard it is. I have bought several units that the people let go, and these are the folks who knew what was in there, which was good stuff, but because they were in another state, and I'm not talking about California. I'm in Georgia, and I remember one, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, well, New York, that's kind of far. But essentially, these people were not in Georgia, and they didn't come get their stuff because it was just too big of a challenge. It was too costly. It was too expensive, and there was good shit in there. And they didn't come back and get that stuff. So that's something else. This whole thing, like, I'm going to get in my truck, and I'm going to hit some auctions down here in Miami, then I'm going to go here. Okay, go for it. And I guarantee you, let's put it this way. Let's do this. Guarantee you, bet you one of these, this guy, one of these, that you do that shit once, you'll never do it again. I don't know how many, I don't know, going up to Cumming, which is like an hour from here, that was like a logistical nightmare. Talking about going across state lines, buying units, sorting, going to the dump, and find buyers. Let's just run through a week of doing that. Let's just give you some costs. Say you are going to Dallas and you live in California. You drive. That's 2 days drive right there with gas costs. So you're 400, 500 bucks in fuel already. Well, you're going to be there for a week, so you need a place to stay unless, you got skills and you can go in the bar and you can speak to that girl and you can be like, hey, girl, I'm here and I'm doing this show and everything. I'll stay with you. Unless you can do that, you got to get a hotel. Unless you want to be in a flea bag motel, you're going to spend 60 to 120 bucks a night. So let's say 70. So that's a week. Whoa, that's not fun. So that's a G. You've already $1,000 down and you haven't bought one unit. Wait, what? You gotta eat. You gotta eat. Give yourself, let's just keep it real cheap. $5 per meal. Say you're gonna cut out a meal just to save money. It's $10. All right, and incidentals, you're at $1,200 and you haven't bought anything. Then you buy stuff. Where are you gonna put it? Oh, what? You gonna leave it in a unit? Okay, that means you have to rent the unit. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And also, for those of you who are not in the business, you work better when you have a rhythm. And it's very hard to get a rhythm when you're like in another state. Now, I'm gonna say it. I'm very arrogant. I could go to another state, buy some units and sell it. But the thing is, I would probably have to be there for a month, honestly. Because you have to get the unit, then you have to develop the sales channels, you have to talk to people. And, recently I just sold a lot of stuff on Craigslist, very high-end stuff, and it took me 2 weeks, and I know what I'm doing. But I held out and I got my price. $1,500 for a laptop. I bought it this year, but then some other stuff in the camera. It takes time to sell certain things. Some days you're gonna, bam, put it up there, hour later, it's gone. But routinely, you're gonna relist that item 2 to 6 times. That's just the reality of the business because competition is fierce. But there's competition that's putting up bullshit ads, and then there's you, if you've got my books, and you're putting up ads that make you stand above and outside the herd. So that's the reality. So those type of things. Because stop coming at me with the. You don't know. You don't know. Do your research, and don't listen to me. Do this. Go to an auction and buy a bullshit unit and move it. Spend no more than $25-$50 and see how much work that is. And I guarantee you, it'll be a very sobering experience that will make you go, man, those TV shows, that's some bull. That's what you'll be saying as you have the sweat roll down your crack, as your back hurts, as your legs hurt from moving all that crap. Just letting you know. This business about going in a unit and just chucking stuff and throwing it out there, I have never did anything so asinine in my life. You run a very good chance of breaking something valuable. There's a lot of china, Wedgwood china, Wedgwood crystal, Lalique, Lexington. There's a lot of stuff that you could just take in the box and just bing. Oh, it's just glass. No, bitch. It's $2,000 that you just broke. Hopefully, you're not doing that. But that is not the proper way to unload a unit or sort. Another thing you see on the television shows, which is common. You buy a unit, not during the auction because you're going to miss something because they move too fast. But after the auction, it's very normal to go back to the storage unit. That part's real. And, depending on what's going on. But that's just that stuff because, when I saw Robert's video, I mean, seriously, I started giggling. I mean, it's not that I'm laughing at his pain. I am laughing because I have been in that same exact situation so many times. You've got this nice box. And that's why I put it in the book. Do not let those boxes lie to you. Don't let them lie to you. You got to look at the other stuff. You have to look at the continuity of the unit. Another thing that you see on the TV shows. Typically, because I TiVo or put it on my recorder for auction hunters, and I typically watch 5, 6, 7, 8 of them in a row. And I've come across some interesting characteristics. They typically spend anywhere from $900 to $2,000, and for some reason always seem to make $6 to $15,000. Let me give you some real numbers. Typically, if you could buy a unit and triple your money, that's very good. That's very good. Which means if you spend $1,000 and you make $3,000, i.e., you sell $3,000 worth of stuff, so your original $1,000 is recaptured, and you make $2,000 in profit. That's a damn good unit. That's 3 times your money. That was doable. That's more realistic. That's more lifelike. If you totally suck ass buying units, you spend $1,000 and you make anywhere from $800 to $1,200. There you are. And that's something else. These shows have predicated that this is very easy. There's a new crop of infomercials and things popping up, and they're like, oh, it's so easy, and you can do this, and you don't have to get dirty, and you can make really a lot of money, and they're lying to you. Let me restate for those who don't know. If anyone has on their blog, their infomercial, their splash page, whatever, and you see the word that starts with an E, and the next letter is an A, and the next letter is an S, and the next letter is a Y, run. I don't know how many times I got my ass up at 6 o'clock in the morning to be at an auction at 8:30, went to auctions all day, At 6, the end of the day, after the last auction, I go back to the first property if I bought units and start loading, and sometimes my ass will get back home at 10 to 12 p.m. If that's easy, okay, it's easy business. My personal opinion, this is some of the hardest work you will ever do in your life, unless you were, say, a roofer or you did some type of manual labor. This will bust your ass. So if you're faint of heart, or you like, one of those little punk bitches that I didn't want to work with my hands and then do menial labor, I'm such a brain. All of us can learn. So that whole automation, trying to make it easy, trying to dip and trying to slide and trying to figure. No, until you get to a certain skill level and you're able to create relationships, hire the proper people, you can't do that. You can't. You're not that talented. I know it sucks, bites ass, and keep reading the blog and like, oh yeah, you don't need to buy any book, because I make it a personal, well, I used to really keep up with all these other blogs and stuff, but I just noticed after what I wrote, after they run out of that, there's like nothing new. And see, I purposely have held some things back just to see if these other guys would write about it. And guess what? They haven't. Because on my stuff I slowed down. Stop posting every day because a whole bunch of people were biting off my shit. At first I was like, wait a minute, that's kind of like, didn't I? And I had to go back to the blog and I'm like, yeah, I wrote about that 2 years ago. These little bastards, these little weak little bitches, because they don't have any skills, they never went out there, never bought a unit in their life, they're trying to ride my dick. Get off my dick. That's all I gotta say. Get off my dick. Do your own shit. Many people out there in TV land or whatever that watch stuff, they can too. Because you understand, there's a large segment of people that watch those shows who are never going to an auction. It's just strictly entertainment. And if you're watching those shows and that's your ideal of entertainment and you're having a good time, bam, go for it. But if you think that those shows are going to help you really learn how to make big money in this business, I have some land I want to sell you. It's at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, but you could do a lot with it. Just saying. Alright, this is Glendon with Making Money with Storage Unit Auctions.